In this video tutorial, we're going to discuss how to work with the pen tool using the fill and no stroke, and also how to utilize outline mode. You may notice for my document, I have already done a file place for a new document, and I placed the Starbucks logo. You might notice for the 8 logos that you will be working with this week, none of them happen to have a stroke, so somewhat similar. You might notice on my layers panel, I've already dictated the layer 1 to be a template layer. If you're unfamiliar again with how to put together a template layer, you would double click. You can title layer 1. You check off the word template. You do not want to dim your images to 50%. So when I put this down, I uncheck that box because I want the most clear and most saturated color in order to fully replicate this logo. It automatically locks the layer once you create a template. Then I added a new layer by going to the left of the trash can where it says create new layer, and layer 2 has appeared. You may also notice a familiar menu from our previous video lectures where I do have a tear off little menu for the pen tool. So if you forget, I went to my pen tool and I held it down. I see all of these options: pen tool, add anchor point, delete anchor point, and convert anchor point. I went all the way over to the right where the little arrow is pointing towards the right, and the little dialog box says tear off, and I release, and I got this little menu here, which is quite nice. So down at the very bottom of the toolbar, if you remember, we have our fill square, which right now it happens to be white, and then the square behind it with the red diagonal through it, that represents stroke. That's your outline. If you look at this logo, and if you look at the 8 logos for this week's class assignment, there are no outlines. So make sure that your stroke square is selected to none. And remember, none has that big red diagonal through it. But if our fill is white, let's get started in trying to pick out the green on the Starbucks logo. I'm going to go to my toolbar, and there's an option that's called eyedropper tool. It looks like a little eyedropper or a little turkey baster. If you happen to like keyboard shortcuts, you can always press the letter I. I'm going to simply click on my eyedropper tool. I want to get this green because I'm going to start vectoring here in a minute. So I'm going to click on the green, and you'll notice that my fill square down at the bottom has turned to that perfect green. There's no other greens, no other colors within this logo, so I'm ready to start. I'm going to actually zoom in, and I encourage you for your exercise 2 or for the classwork assignment 2 to zoom in because it makes life a lot easier. It's always good to be able to go in and out of your document on Adobe Illustrator. So I zoomed in pretty far. Now I'm ready to start using my pen tool. So here's my handy dandy little tear off menu. I'm going to click on pen tool, and I'm going to start vectoring. So I'm going to take my pen tool, point and click. Okay. I want to make a little bit of a curve, so if you remember from your classwork exercise 1, if you click and drag out your shape, you're going to get some handlebars. I'm going to try to make it as close as I can for that nose area. Okay. You might notice that my handlebars are going in a diagonal direction. If I was to click my pen tool over here, it would create a big lump. So what I would like to do now, and you may want to try this when you're working on your classwork assignment, is trying to utilize the convert anchor point tool. So I'm going to click there and watch what happens. I'm going to take my handlebar, I'm going to make it a little bit shorter. This is just clicking and dragging in the direction that I'm going to put my next anchor point using the pen tool. So it's going slightly in that direction. I'm going to let go. Now I'm going to go back to my pen tool, and I'm going to click on the end of it. So let's go back. Okay. I'm going to take my convert anchor point tool, Here we go. I'm going to let it go upward a little bit. You might notice that the shape is not completely entirely covering. And now I would like to introduce the purpose in utilizing outline mode. What's nice about outline mode is that you can see exactly where your vector shapes are drawn and how to correct them and make them more aligned to what you're exactly tracing. So on a Mac, it is Command Y. On a Windows, it is going to be Control Y. We're now in outline mode. If you look up at the little tab for this document, I have Entitled 1 at 300%, CMYK, so it's ready for print, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, and then /outline. We are in outline mode. You might notice that I now have a black line. It looks almost like a stroke, doesn't it? This is outline mode, and it helps you to see where your shape is. So I'm trying really hard, trying to get this a little more correct. Sometimes it does take time. Within Adobe Illustrator, as you may have found out with your classwork assignment number 1, it can take time. I'm going to go back to the other anchor point and let's see what happens. It got a little bit fatter, but see how it's not exactly following that green shape. So I'm going to take my handlebars, massage it down. Got to twist it and turn it a little bit. Let me take this handlebar, bring it in closer. Okay, so this might happen to you. You might be working on a shape and you think, oh no, how do I get back? I made a mistake. On a Mac, it is holding down the Command key and tapping the letter Z. On a Windows, it is holding down the Control key and tapping the letter Z. So I'm going to take this. That's fairly close. So now I'm going to take this off of outline mode and go to Command Y. And I now have a shape that is there. But how do I truly test this? If you remember from your classwork assignment number 1, you can always go to your shapes or your eyeball and toggle off and on, back and forth to see what work you have done and what it looks like on the artboard. So I'm going to hit the little shapes or a template layer, and now I just happen to see my shape that I have created. Okay, so I'm done with that shape. I need to deselect it. I'm going to choose the selection tool, the black arrow. It has a bounding box around it. I want to click off of that. And now I'm going to continue and do a second shape. I still want that green fill. I'm going to go to my pen tool. And now I'm going to create an anchor point. I'm going to click and drag out because I want a curve. This handlebar I'd like to move in the direction that this curve is going, so I'm going to utilize my Convert Anchor Point tool. Make it shorter. Okay. So there it is right there. Now I'm going to come full circle. You might notice that it's not the exact shape, so I'm actually going to zoom in a bit further. This is why zooming in and out is so important in Adobe Illustrator. You want to be able to get your vectors close to exact as you can. So now I'm going to go to my Convert Anchor Point tool and I'm going to play with my handlebars. So I'm going to extend this out as close as I can to this shape. I made a mistake. Sometimes that does happen. So I'm going to hit the Command key, hit the letter Z. I'm going to take this handlebar and sort of move it out a little bit. Sometimes it's the placement of the anchor. So when that happens, you can always hit the arrow keys on your keyboard to go up, down, left or right. So I'm going to move it towards the right a little bit. I like to be able to see, am I truly following this shape? So I'm going to go back onto outline mode, so Command Y. And now I can see how far off I am. How can I make this better? So I'm going to click on this anchor point right here. And if you click and drag out, you might notice that I get more space for this shape. I'm going to take this anchor point and move it out slightly. I might need to move it up. Okay. Take the handlebar and move it in slightly. Okay. Take the handlebar, move it out. This one I want to actually move down so it's a little more in alignment to this logo. So if I want to check my work, I'm going to get off of outline mode. I'm going to hit Command Y. I now have my vectored shape, and then as a second double checking point, I'm going to go to my template layer, click on the icon for template, and now I can see my vectored shapes. So as you go through classwork assignment number 2, the logo fill exercise, keep in mind how to toggle between the outline mode, really utilizing both your pen tool and your convert anchor point tool for your handlebars. That's really going to be your lifesaver for this assignment.